Welcome to another interview conducted by EFSAS. And this time we have with us Dr. Syed Alam Mahsud. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Welcome, sir. Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me.
Dr. Mahsud is a surgeon. He's also a political activist. He is a founding member of the Pashtun Tahafuz Movement, PTM. He's also a technical expert on the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. And Dr. Masood is from the Masood tribe of South Waziristan in Pakistan. Before we start, as I told you earlier as well, sir, these interviews are conducted in a quite frank manner. So we will, of course, talk about the situation in your country, in Pakistan, about CPEC, about the Pashtun Tahafuz movement and the rights of minorities in the country, especially the Pashtun, but also the Baloch and others. But before we do that, it's always nice to know the person being interviewed. So and I know that you also have a bit of some concerns regarding your own security and your family. So it would be nice if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, your professional life, of course, as a surgeon, but also your political life, because as you also mentioned, you have been very close to Khan Abdul Wali Khan and other Pashtun leaders in the area. And recently, or a while ago, you also got connected with the Pashtun Tahafuz movement, the PTM. So if you could shed some light on your personal journey, but also your political journey, how it has been and how it came about that a surgeon also became such a prominent political activist.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'm extremely thankful to you for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to talk to you. It's a great privilege for me. Politics and professionalism have always been in my life. I have two personalities in myself. I'm one in two, or two in one. Right from my student life, I was good in academic career. And when I was contesting presidential election for Khyber Medical College Students Union. The poster had mentioned his character, potential career. So this was what was a plus point for me, that I was the only student activist or presidential candidate who had a very good academic career. So studies and politics always went together in my life. And when I became a doctor, and of course, my students' politics were from Pashtun Federation, and I was a Pashtun nationalist right from beginning. And when I became a doctor, then I thought that why not to have an ideological doctor's wing of nationalist doctors. So I launched a Malgari Doctor Tanzim organization as well. Meanwhile, I was doing my post-graduation. So both the things were going together. All in my life, professionalism and politics both went together. And 2002, when I was the pioneer pediatric surgeon and in charge of pediatric surgery, and it was such a proud privilege to be the teacher of the same college from where I had graduated and pioneer pediatric surgeon of the promise, the seventh in the promise, the first in the promise and the seventh in the country as a fellow of pediatric surgery. But even then, this privilege couldn't stop me to resist the unlawful ordinance of General Musharraf. And I launched a movement among doctors against the institution-based private practice. And finally, we had to resign because the might prevailed and we quit the job. In 2002, I, along with other 100 plus professorial staff, resigned from the job. From there onward, my private practice and politics went very smoothly together. And I started civil society movements. And from civil society movement, went to Pashtunkhwa Ulasi Party. And I was the one who was in self-exile when I wrote Peshawar Declaration from Aman Tehrik of Peshawar. At that time, we were called Mombati Mafia. In each and every incident of terrorism which took place in our province and which no one else could dare come, we were just 5, 7, 8 people who used to demonstrate in public against any brutality. When Malala Yousafzai was attacked. We were hardly 9 people to protest, but we were there. We all the time. And finally, I had to escape the country for 3-4 months because I was terrorized by the Taliban, and I do have the original letter of the Tehrik-e-Taliban, then Amir Hakimullah Masud. Those bad days were then over, and then I launched Pashtunkhwa Ulasi Tehrik, a research-based organization from which we did many researches on water, electricity, grant in aid given to Pakistan and how it was distributed. Then was the CPEC, which then was highlighted the most. I had 2 booklets on that. And finally, then Pashtun Tahafuz Movement, when we marched in that, and finally we launched it. So, and of course, threats to my life have always been persistent. I have seen the bars many times. I have been behind the bars many times.
That is what was very interesting when I was reading about you, is that you of course professionally you are a surgeon, you are a doctor, which is of course not it's not an everyday thing. Not everyone becomes a doctor, and especially not a surgeon. It takes a lot of dedication and commitment, and of course a lot of studies. And you also don't hear a lot about doctors being in jail. But you have ended up quite a few times in jail.
Yeah.
What was your crime?
For the first time, I went to jail when I was a student leader. Mm-hmm. And then I was kept in prison when I was a doctor and active in doctors' politics, trade union politics. And the third time was when I was in Ulasi Tehrik, when we were protesting for the Army Public School, the Army Public School. On 16th December 2014, this tragedy happened, and on 31st December, just 14 days after, we were arrested not to protest peacefully, not to have a strike, not to talk of Dehshatgardi ke piche vardi, the army, the uniform behind the terrorism. And that was, then came the PTM. So in PTM, I had to be and the life threats similarly coincided.
You have even not only been to jail, but you've also been in solitary confinement.
Oh yes, that was very terrible.
As recently as I think 2021.
Yeah. It was a very, very terrible and had nothing to do with the cases against me. All the cases against me were routine, but the Mardan prison or Mardan jail, they kept me in solitary confinement in January or probably early start of February, whatever the date was. But it was very cold, and they had very huge windows, and all the other barracks had a plastic covering to avoid that cold breeze coming in. But for me, on both sides, all the 14 or 15th windows on both sides were kept open, and I was the only prisoner inside. I was not allowed to go for sunbath. The sun used to come in one of the window, and I used to just stand in front of that. So these were the days of solitary confinement. And even the prisoners were not allowed to meet me. I could not even call for someone to bring peanuts for me worth rupees 50,000.
But it's very strange when I read about you, is that on one hand you have been put in jail, and I assume you are put in jail by the state.
Of course.
On the other hand, you have been receiving threat calls and threats from terrorist organizations. So on both sides of the divide, and the state has persecuted you, and the terrorist organizations have threatened you, and there have even been some failed attempts on your life. So does this in essence prove this very famous slogan coined by PTM, that behind this terrorism, it is the uniform?
No doubt in that. No doubt in that. No iota of doubt in that. When I was imprisoned for the first time in PTM, in Peshawar police station, when they were interrogating me, they asked the same question, that you are raising slogans against the state institutes. I simply asked the police that we are attacking against you. They said, no, you are not attacking against me. I told them we are attacking against FC, uniform FC. They said, no, you are not attacking against FC. I asked them, okay, we are attacking against the Rangers. They said, no, you are not attacking against. Then I asked them, how did you come to know that which uniform we are mentioning? They said, you are mentioning army. I said, yes, you also acknowledge it. It's not police behind the terrorism. It's not the Ranger or FC behind the terrorism. It's the army behind the terrorism. And uniform is army. And this is not a debatable question at all. It is solved already by the Pakistani generals. You can see the interviews, the confessions of General Musharraf, even General Kiani, even Imran Khan, even Imam Colonel Imam. Everybody has accepted that we made this terrorist. Who made this terrorist organization? Israel? No. India? No. Who made it? Pakistani army made it. Have you ever blamed Jamaat Islami for this? No. None of the political party is responsible for it. It's only the army and the state. None of the civilian government is responsible for it. Even the MMA government, nobody has claimed that or blamed that MMA did it. Nobody have blamed that IJI did it or Muslim League Noon did it. It's the army who did it, and we have no doubt in that. Our slogan is perfect and absolutely truth like a daylight.
And this is, of course, this has been said many times. This has been many people, many states, even the US, the EU have undeniable proof that the Pakistani army has been involved in funding, training, patronizing terrorist organizations in Pakistan and the region. At the same time, and that's something it would be interesting to know from you, there have also been voices which say, well, that is a policy which was of yesteryears. It is a policy which was inherited by army generals. It takes time to move on from that. And currently, you've seen that Pakistan was put on the FATF list, then they were taken out of the grey list. There have been some cozying up between the US and the Pakistanis again. So there are also voices which say that this policy has been done and dusted with, and the Pakistani army and the state have now started to let go of these terrorists, and they're treading on a new path in order to achieve peace in the country. How would you comment on that?
I wish it would have been like that. It's not like that. It's a very much persistently on policy. Of course, not made by politicians or political government. Well, the strategic depth policy was initially, this is the strategic depth policy. This was initially launched when Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was the prime minister, and he didn't know it. This was phase one. Phase two was in Ziaul Haq era when they started interfering in Afghanistan, when the socialist inqilab had not yet started. And then the socialist revolution which came in Afghanistan and further interfered. This is phase three. Phase four was the stage when Ziaul Haq by himself confessed that, you see, a day will come when Afghanistan will be a beacon of Islam and will be spreading Islam to the neighboring Central Asian Muslim states when Soviet Union was intact. So they were considering that we are fighting with India. They are 7 times more than us. We need the two-nation theory has not been synced in the Bay of Bengal. The only reason was that they were far away. There was sea in between. There was India in between. So we should extend our two-nation theory to the regional nearby Muslim state. And if our F-16 attacks Delhi, and when it comes, our lumbar spine is narrow. That I never knew. Our kamar hamari patli hai, patli kamariya wali. So the F-16 goes through us. and we need a neighbor state where these F-16s will be grounded, refueled, refreshed, and attack again the India. This was its origin. And it's very much on, and if there is any doubt, let me quote few examples, recent examples. What is Tehrik-e-Labbaik? What was the statement of General Faiz Hamid? What was the statement of General Bajwa at that time? They are our people. They torched the vehicles, private vehicles. They killed security people. They killed police, and they were sent home. Nothing happened to them. Why? The general said they are our people. But about us, they never said like that. The Baloch who were demonstrating for peaceful, for missing people very peacefully in Quetta, Karachi, or Islamabad, what the state did with them are the current wave of terrorism which has been spreading in the province, and people are uprising against it. All these terrorists were brought again by Pakistan Army on the directive of General Faiz Hamid, the Corps Commander of Peshawar, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. And they are still very much in it. Taliban of Afghanistan, these are their stooges. These are their people. They spreaded Takfiri crusade, Takfiri jihad, which meant that through this, we will tackle Afghan nationalism. And through that narrow prison of Takfiri jihad, they are still ruling it. It's the menace, and it's their foreign policy tool. It's their way of spreading terrorism. And this is how they tackle their opponents within the country and outside the country.
Do you agree that because you are very clear in it that the policy of patronizing terrorism is still very much there by the army. Why do you think that the the attention to terrorism, and especially this facet of it, has declined a bit in the world, in the West? Why do you think that is the case?
Well, in the West, agree. In the West, agree, because West is not that sincere to eliminate terrorism from Kashmir or from Pashtunkhwa, from Balochistan or from Afghanistan. They are not interested in that. It's not their headache.
They want to eliminate it in the West.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They have achieved their goal.
As of now.
Yeah, of course. But my assessment is that fundamentalism, or religious fundamentalism, is the weapon of choice of America. It's not bad for them. It serves the purposes which probably many other democracy may not serve. So monarchs, dictators, religious ruler, it suits them a lot.
But this might, of course, change whenever something, God forbid, worse happens again in the West, a terrorist attack.
Of course. But that will be a symptomatic response. They will never eradicate it. For example, if I am having a pain or fever, you give me paracetamol or ibuprofen. It is a symptomatic treatment. If you are not treating my disease, you are not helping me that. You are just relieving my symptoms. So if something happens like that, they will retaliate. But that retaliation will again be very transient. It will not eradicate the actual menace.
So it was just, I think today it was announced that Lieutenant General Asim Munir will be the new chief of army. And you what you have been saying is that nothing of the policy will change.
I wish you read my tweet just half an hour ago. First of all, for us, whosoever is the army chief or the prime minister, for us, nothing will change.
For
Imran
us,
Khan, pardon?
For us, you mean the people of Pakistan, or
for Pashtun and Baloch?
And what about the other people in Pakistan?
Well, the other people have different issues. The issues of us, For example, terrorism, usurping resources, missing people, killing the nationalist voices. This is not in Punjab. This is not, it is in Kashmir to some extent. It was in Sindh to some extent. It is applicable to MQM to some certain extent, but not that grossly as it is applicable to Pashtun and Baloch. So for us, or for all of us, say for all the conscious speaking people of Pakistan, nothing will change. Because this is not the difference. That was never the bone of contention between any one of them. This is not a bone of contention between Imran Khan and Shahbaz Sharif. This is not a point of discussion between Bajwa and Hassan Munir. This is, they are unanimous that yes, keep on interfering in Afghanistan. Terrorist groups are in the domain of army. Don't interfere in that. Use resources, whatever they are doing well. Missing person, why Akhtar Mengal desisted from Imran Khan when he could not answer any other promises done with Akhtar Mengal because he couldn't do that. So for us, no difference. But it's good that anyway, their inner hood is getting revealed.
Mm-hmm. And what about now that you have a new army chief or announced, and he is going to take over soon? There have been these voices, and I'm not sure whether it's true or not, but there is, because of this wave of the PTI and Imran Khan's popularity, there are some differences, divides within the army. How would you see that?
Very, very pertinent question. Very, very, very important question. I have done few logs about it. For me, the difference vis-a-vis Imran Khan is not a proper assessment. It is the difference within the army which reflected to us in the form of Imran Khan and PDM. Not vis-a-vis, not the other way around. The army within is facing differences, and it's all because of their contradictory politics and policies which they did in the past. For example, on one hand, they say that we are closer to China, our friendship is taller than mountains, deeper than sea, sweeter than honey. But all the time they do what America do. This is what a contradiction. What beautifully this contradictory policy they have dragged along for decades. The second is that we are the country who was made for Islam. Saudi is our best friend because of that narrative. But always they sold Islam out. They sold Islam for the sake of dollars. So these mentalities within the army are contradicting, and because for so many years they interfered in politics, so politics is interfering in them. It's a natural phenomena. So this is a different point of view within the army, and for the first time, in the shape of Imran and in the form of Imran, this came to us as well, to me and you as well. For example, when Yahya Khan became the army chief, even at that time there were differences within the army. In regard to the rule of the army, there was a question of 5 generals. Even General Pirzada was considered to be his prime minister, unannounced prime minister. So differences were there. But then at the time of extension of Bajwa, this get more revealed, and now it get further delineated. It's commonly said that it's not only General Faiz Hamid. There are 4 generals behind Imran Khan in the first 6 or 7 generals. So this is the difference of opinion within the army, not for me and you, for the sake of me and you, not for the sake of democracy. It is for the sake of their own vested interest, their own whatever they are thinking, and it's type of thing like that, probably not ideological at all.
And you just talked about China. This something I wanted to discuss with you. You, of course, you have been the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa's government's technical expert on the China-Pakistan economic corridor. Before we come on the CPEC, do you think, you just talked a few minutes ago about the fact that, yes, you have some persecution of people in Sindh. You also have it in Pakistan administered Jammu and Kashmir, but you have it much more in the Pashtun belt and in Balochistan. How much of this has to do with the CPEC?
Well, unluckily, the resistance among these areas, among the Kashmir, Gilgit-Baltistan, Pashtuns, and Baloch, was not that much against CPEC. Mm-hmm. It should have been much more, because the CPEC, it belonged to them. It was for them. It was snatched. But there was no resistance. Finally, when it got snatched and the eastern route became the actual route, it went through Lahore, 800 kilometers long from one side. So 1600 kilometer longer pathway from both sides. And there was an incident in Quetta when the lawyers were killed in a suicide attack, if you recall that tragic day. General Rahil said that this was a revenge of CPEC. Even at that time, I said, why the revenge of CPEC? And he said that India is behind it. I said, why India is behind it? When there is no CPEC on Quetta, going through Quetta, why India will attack Quetta? If India wants to sabotage CPEC, Lahore is quite nearer to India. Why they will not attack Lahore? It's just, they say that it's because of CPEC, but it's not like that. It's the whole crackdown against us is that because of the long-term injustices, discriminations, usurping the resources of these people, they have tired, and terrorism in Pashtuns have really killed us. So we have no option other than to fight. And they want to crush us. And this is the second. Same is about Kashmiri, same is about Baloch.
As being a technical expert on CPEC, can you explain for us how you view the CPEC? How what is the deal about? Is it like some say a game changer, or some say it's a debt trap? Others say that it's maybe a game changer for some people, but the others, their resources will be snatched. How do you view CPEC? What do you think about it?
Well, CPEC was a very gigantic program, and the Chinese had built that route, that map, which was passing from China through Khunjarat, through Gilgit, through Khyber Pakhtunkhwa to Balochistan. This was the natural pathway, the natural route, which was shorter, which was all-season friendly, free of fog, free of flood, which was going through the mineral-rich areas and, of course, the most backward areas. And it was supposed to be a cluster corridor because the China was imagining that other corridors from South Asian Central states will come, Central Asian states will come, and they will join it. So it will be a huge sum of activity. And above all, China thought that we are facing religious and nationalist uprising. In Tibet, it's because of the nationalist, and in Xinjiang, it's because of religion. Pakistan is having the same. In Pashtuns, it's based on religion, and Baloch, it's national. So hopefully I'm helping Pakistan. But when it came to Pakistan, they said, no, not this way. Go through us. Pakistan is Punjab, practically speaking. They come through us. So China had to do it. If it would have come through its natural route, it was fortune changing. When it got diverted, how can it change fortune for Baloch, Pashtun, or Gilgit-Baltistan? I used to tell at that time, even it's written in my book, that there was not a single project for Gilgit-Baltistan. They will be just visualizing a train and motorway with bars. They can watch it from away. The river was better. They could jump in it. Here, they can't jump in it. So nothing was for Gilgit-Baltistan, nothing for us, nothing for Balochistan. Moreover, the Special Security Division, which expenditure is being deducted and was decided to be deducted from our electricity bills. So we all will be paying, giving the money to them, paying the debts, and somebody else will be getting prosperous. The electricity project, which were at that time $33 billion, I proposed to SN Iqbal in front of all these parliamentary leaders in Planning Commission of Pakistan when Speaker Asad Kaisar was in the chair, that okay, you are constructing Multan Sakkar motorway on boot basis, build, own, operate, and transfer. Please construct the 19,000 megawatt hydropower in Gilgit, Darya Kunhar, River Kunhar, and Darya Sindh, which is uncontroversial, which was uncontroversial route at that time, controversial part of the route. So you better do it on boot basis. It will be much cheaper. The minimum cost of the project which you are bringing through the private energy producer, the minimum cost is 16 rupees, while the cost of hydropower is just 0.75 rupees, 0.75 rupees, 75 paisa. He said, no, it has been done. I said, how it has been done? Why all these projects were allocated to the industrialists of Punjab and Sindh who were closer to Nawaz Sharif? And one of them was the Qatari prince, who later on was writing a letter in favor of him. So it was meant for few people, for few family, and particular cities. It was not for the country. So if America wants to fight with CPEC or India fights to fight, why I shall fight? When this CPEC is no more mine, why it should bother me? It's no more a game changer. It is a project which will make certain elite class, Pakistani elite class much more prosperous and will make us much more poorer, much more depressed.
And how much is it true that a lot of resources, like you said, it's going to make a particular class in Pakistan richer and another class in Pakistan much more poorer? How true is it that a lot of resources for the CPEC taken from indeed Gilgit-Baltistan, Pashtun lands, and Balochistan, while they don't get anything in return for exploitation of these resources?
Yeah. It's the recently amended Mines and Mineral Act. This is a very strange change in that. The recent Mines and Mineral Act has been changed to such an extent in which this is mentioned that now the head of this Mines and Mineral Department will not be the secretary, routine secretary, who is a DMG, who goes through promotion by initially, assistant, there's something, and then secretary, and is having a section officer, deputy secretary, additional secretary, and second, not like that. He will be a contract employee who will be from retired army. And then this, in previous rule, it was stated that the opposition, the treasury bench, the opposition, and the geological department, the environmental department, civil society, the mines workers, they all will be included in this board. Now all has been eliminated. So to cut it short, if resource belongs to Gilgit, for example, the contract will be given to me, for example. Though it will never be given to me, it will be given to a consortium or a frontier works. It will be given to them. They have the right to dig it. They will measure whatever the amount was. None of the local will come to know that whether it was exactly 1 kg or 100 kg. They can't dispute it. Similarly, the trucks, the vehicle use will be their numbers, their token number, their token. You can't use if you, being an owner of that mineral, if somebody found a mineral in your truck or in your car, you will be sent to bar with 20-year imprisonment. You cannot question the lease. You cannot question why you are not giving me a tactical know-how, why you are not recruiting me. You cannot say anything. So whatever the federation decides, they will get everything out of it. And whatever they claim, if they say that it was 1 kg, you have to accept it. Even if it is 1,000 kg, you cannot question it. So how can you, even despite of all the resources, what then other nations can do? They can't do anything. It will be pure exploitation and nothing.
So this is in that sense, as some may have called it, neo-colonialism.
More than that, new colonialism was through someone, but I was given some right. Here, nothing will be given to you. It's direct colonialism. It's direct snatching power. Shut up. The actual owners should shut up simply.
And they have been, because in, like, for example, taking the example of Gilgit-Baltistan, many Kashmiri nationalists have raised the question, apart from the resources, have raised the question that Gilgit-Baltistan is not part of Pakistan. So it in essence is not allowed, or legally it cannot build such a big project along with a third country through that area. Because, as you know, the issue of Jammu and Kashmir is disputed. Have there been similar voices in Balochistan and the Pashtun area?
Yes, of course, there are similar voices. In regard to Gilgit, I used to say that I rather discussed it in that ministerial meeting. I told them that there is 50,000 hydropower potential in Gilgit.
Yeah, 52,000 megawatt.
Yeah, why don't you do that? They said there is no system of electricity carrying system. I said, why not? If Gilgit gives you that much potential, based on that enemy, you can connect it with the central system. They said, no, it will cost us a lot. So no need to give them water power. There are certain people in Pashtunkhwa and Balochistan, but the issue in Pashtunkhwa and Balochistan is going much ahead than that. Probably Balochistan has totally lost the hope that Pakistan will ever give justice to us. So they are thinking of absolute separation. They are no more thinking that you should give me this right. They are thinking about emancipation. They are not thinking about privileges and rights anymore in the state.
They are thinking, they are thinking about secession.
Of course. And the same is the stage coming for Pashtuns. I used to say, and I'm saying it, that, for example, when the nationalists of Pakistan, Pashtuns, didn't do much or represent the people, a vacuum was created and PTM came in. For example, if we do not act amicably, vacuum will come and another organization will come, which will be far radical than us.
Because the PTM's demands are, as I also have talked to other PTM members, they are well within the constitution of Pakistan. They are asking for their rights. They are asking for know-how about the enforced disappearances. They want an equal and equitable share in the exploitation of resources. And of course, there's this big issue about the Durand line, which is on both sides. But leaving that aside, the Pashtun Tahafuz movement has been very much within the constitution of Pakistan. But as you say, and some have expressed that if the state fails to fulfill the demands of the PTM, there might come a time when there will be a much more radical, as you call it, an organization which will actually go the path the Baloch have or the Kashmiris have to ask for secession.
Yes, of course, it's natural. Well, the struggle of nations is it's always spiral. Mm-hmm. It doesn't go like this. It's in turns, in spirals. For a nationalist movement, much radical nationalist movement, and far radical nationalist movement. and absolute secessionists.
But Dr. Masood, if that happens, what exact difference will it make? Because it happened in Balochistan and the army went on a killing spree. And it will happen in the Pashtun lands, and the army will go on a killing spree. So will it really make a difference?
When let's judge when the day comes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's we will discuss when we cross the bridge.
And what do you think about because the Baloch have crossed the bridge? What do you think about their situation?
Well, the struggle of Baloch, of course, they are being killed, they are being tortured, they are very few in number. The human resource counts, for example, 40 lakhs civilians versus 5 lakh or 10 lakh army, no match.
Mm-hmm.
But we also know that number of killings drags people away from you. You cannot win over the people through the barrel of gun. You can. There is certain time when you can win them over. But when the human hearts get damaged, and when there is tears in the eyes of the sisters and mothers, all these states and empires have been washed away in the tears of mothers and sisters.
So is this divide irrevocable, or do you believe that there is still time with the policymakers or the state or the army to bridge these gaps?
For Baloch, I think it's over. Mm-hmm. For us, time is still there. Probably for Kashmir and Gilgit and Sindhi, also time is still there. But for us, whenever Pashtun decides, when they reach to the conclusion, then fighting Pashtuns out, and if it is at a time when Gilgit and Kashmiri also have the same type of feelings, and they are nearer this feelings, I think the mountainous people with too many human resource, then it will be difficult.
But what would it end up in? It would end up in breaking up Pakistan, which is probably not in the interest of the Western sponsors of Pakistan or China, who are keeping it together.
Well, this is another question. I think I foresee long-term uncertainty in the region. Mm-hmm. Just like Syria, Egypt, Iraq, Libya, Iran, Afghanistan, I see the same type of uncertainty in Pakistan. Maybe it's because the West wants like this, or maybe the West is helpless. Pakistan is becoming a liability for them. In return, they are not getting that much. And the way for which Pakistan was created and the way it served them, probably now the equation is, I think, if it's not clear, at least it's blood. It's not the way it was.
But it is a liability of 220 million people with nuclear weapons.
Well, this can be sorted out for them. This is not an issue. I don't think so. For such a computerized world, if they have what they call it, their ship in the Indian Ocean, from there they can jam your atomic nuclear weapons. Even from the airplane, even from the stars, it's not that big.
That is, of course, the Western role, which is debatable. What do you think about the other superpower, which is China? And as you said, the friendship is quite deep.
China by itself, number one, when they decided to build BRI, initially named as OBAR, now BRI. BRI by itself for me means that you want to invest in other countries and want to earn money. It's against the basic ideology of socialism. So probably it's no more socialist country as it used to be. So if it is not a socialist country, the war will be different. If it is a socialist country, the situation would have been different. When not ideological, then they get confused. For example, in Pakistan, for India, they will need Pakistan, but America might need India for China. So this equation is not straightforward. The situation is not straightforward. For example, in CPEC, which was the only part of BRI for Pakistan, we all protested. I wrote a number of letters to Chinese embassy, to the Chinese government. We wrote a lot many. At that time, I met the consul as well. They were not budging. If the China is supporting the CPEC on Lahore route, why to consider that China will be sympathetic to me, to Pashtun? I mean, me means Pashtun. Similar is about Balochistan. When China wants to capture Gwadar, and in Gwadar plan, I have mentioned in that booklet, the total population mentioned was minimum was 1 crore of Gwadar. And of course, port city, we have seen Karachi and many other port cities, it can increase many times. What will be the situation of the Baloch, who are just 40 lakhs? So if you want to snatch their port and convert them into minority, you are no more a progressive country, and you are also a usurper, you are also an imperialist. That's why the Baloch are not going in favor of China. So a very complex situation, probably a warlike situation will come if this strength of powers goes on between the two mighty powers of the world.
And how do you see the future of the CPEC then?
Well, future is in doldrums. If China is able to construct it, no doubt it will be number one power. But construction is very difficult and destruction is very easy. Probably the other force will destroy it earlier than it gets constructed. The current wave of uncertainties in various countries seems to be one reason as well. That on all the ways where BRI is being constructed or planned or imagined, there is fire everywhere. So in fire, you cannot construct buildings.
But isn't that the Chinese modus operandi to actually do this in vulnerable countries where it is political volatile, because the deals they struck are in essence more beneficial to China than they are to the host countries.
Yeah, it is. But at least when, for example, if CPEC would have been gone through the actual natural route, it would have been changed the fortune of the Gilgit, including Kashmir, including Pashtuns and Balochistan. That would have helped them out. But when it went the other way, of course, it's then destruction. Why to have a sympathy? So, very complex situation, not straight, tortuous from every possible aspects. For example, can you imagine that if America really and actually and practically pressurizes Pakistani General GHQ, will the GHQ stand by Chinese and Americans? I think they will stand by Americans, not Chinese. So the party on which they are betting everything, the Chinese are betting everything, they are not reliable. When they are supporting elite class of Pakistan, Punjab, of course, they cannot lose the sympathy of actual, genuine Kashmiri, Gilgit-Baltistani, Pashtuns or Baloch. So this is another way. Same is about Afghanistan. If China is sympathetic to Afghanistan, the situation will be different. If it is imperialist to Afghanistan, the situation will be different. So it's a fluid situation from all possible point of
view. I'm coming to the end of this interview, but I still have a few questions, and that's mostly about the current situation in Pakistan. As you know, we were just a few days ago, I was discussing with someone, is that the one prime minister, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, was hanged. Benazir Bhutto was killed. Another general who was also the president was put in exile in Dubai, Musharraf. One prime minister is in exile in the UK while his brother is the current prime minister. And then another one was just shot in his foot a few days ago. What do you make up of this volatile history of civilian governments and civilian leaders in Pakistan?
Even those who were not killed, they were of no use. Mm-hmm. Anybody who dissented a little bit, he was either killed or attempted or exiled. This is a very checkered history. And we all know that actually it's the GHQ who is calling the knots.
By GHQ,
of course,
General
of course.
Headquarters of the Army.
But we also see and we discuss that there is differences in the GHQ as well. And this is what really happens. For how long you will be controlling this country like this? You cannot run it anymore. And what's your financial situation now? And what are you doing? They are going towards a very dead end, and they are bound to. And
that is something people have been saying for 50 years about the country.
Of course, you are 100% right, but for 50 years, the situation was not that bad as it is. With passage of time, in 50 years, number one, the country was separated. So when people were saying, they were not wrong. Mm-hmm. It got divided in just 25 years. And in the remaining years, it thrashed and are flourished on the basis of Afghanistan, this strategic death policy. They sold out, they became mercenaries, they sold out Islam and jihad and everything, and they got a lot of money in return. Now how will they sell the things anymore? The sellable commodities have decreased. And number two, in Pakistan, if you realize that in last 50 years, when we were students, Jamaat Islami used to be the biggest possible educator and protectors of Pakistan army. It's no more like that. JUI used to be the same. It's no more like that. Muslim League Nawaz or AJI used to be the same. It's no more like that. Then PTI came in. PTI was like that. It's no more like that. So this ground situation has totally changed for GHQ. Nobody is fighting for them, with the exception of the terrorists. So publicly, they are not having any sympathy anymore. This never happened in the last 75 years. Similarly, in the world scale, 50 years ago or 40 years ago, Pakistan was never as isolated as it is today. Number three, Pakistan was never in such a financial crunch as it is today. And number four, GHQ, we could never imagine that there will be differences among the generals within the GHQ. And now it's, everybody knows it. So the situation is totally different now.
And do you see, for example, if we take this to more of a geopolitical look at the geopolitical situation, you of course talked about terrorism in the Baloch and in the Pashtun areas. You talked about the uniform, the army being behind these terrorists. As you know, there has been, for a long time, there has been this policy of also using terrorism in Kashmir. Now, and for some time that has been less or more. Recent years, it has been a bit less because of some pressures of the international community on Pakistan, the FATF, and other measures. Now that those measures are relaxed or lesser to an extent, would you see that policy being revived?
No. How will they revive their policy? They will never. Just listen yesterday's speech of General Bajwa. Mm-hmm. Even he is not accepting now that in Bengal, the army was defeated.
No, I mean by do you see, for example, terrorism growing in the coming time, and also growing not only in the Baloch and Pashtun areas, but also again in the region of Kashmir?
Terrorism growing?
Yes.
Yes, they are trying their level best.
Okay.
They are trying their level best, and there might be some international agenda as well, but the local uprising of the people is making it difficult for them. There might be another way out as well. They might increase their price through the local uprising. Oh, it's so difficult. Give me furthermore and furthermore. This is what they've usually done. But even then, it will be difficult for them. We should encourage the peace lovers as much as we can. We should give more intensity in them, organize them more, collaborate them with them, and hopefully they will be defeated.
But what will happen to these to the Jaish-e-Mohammed, to the Lashkar-e-Toibas, to the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, to the Sipahi-Sahaba, to all these people? What will happen? You know, where you can't even let's for the sake of argument say that they will be defeated. But what means defeated? You can't throw them in the sea. What will happen? Where will they go?
Well, let's then learn from the history. When of course, this organization which you mentioned and many more, they are the assets of Pakistan Army, and when we all are united against them, there will be either they and army together will fight with us, or they will fight among themselves. When this terrorism is such a tool which is self-defeatist by itself. You cannot win the people through terrorism. You can terrorize them, of course, and they did it with us, but you cannot win them over. So this is a self-defeatist phenomena. What happened in the history when a self-defeatist policy was made by a state or emperor? What happened? Then that policy engulfed the state itself. So it's going to be against them, not against us.
And you don't believe that anything will change with the new army chief?
No, of course, not at all, not at all.
How do you? There's many people are now discussing about this new Lieutenant General Asim Munir. What are your thoughts? As soon as a new army chief comes, there are some people who will say, well, he's more radical. Some will say, well, he's a moderate. Like I remember when after Pervez Musharraf left, General Kiani came, and it was said about him that he's a thinking general. And then Raheel Sharif was much more of an on the religion. So what do you know about Lieutenant General Asim Munir?
Oh, I don't want to know much about him. To be very frank, he will be another Bajwa, he will be another Kiani, he will be another Raheel Sharif, he will be another Ziaulak. They have never changed, they are the same thing.
So nothing will change.
Nothing will change.
The policy will continue as it is.
Yeah.
And that is because the institutional interest of the army don't change.
Yeah, of course. And don't learn it even. They can't learn. They don't have the capacity.
Okay, and coming to you of course in the beginning, as we said, you are a founding member of the Pashtun Tahafuz Movement. You're still a member of the Pashtun Tahafuz Movement. I think you are in the central committee, or
I was, but when this third, for the first two core committee, I was a member. But when this third election was being held, I was coming out of the country, and I told Mazur Pashtun that I can't continue as a member of core committee anymore.
Okay, and you've talked in the beginning about the PTM. I know that the PTM currently has been conducting elections because. Tell me if I'm right in this thinking, but the Pashtun Tahafuz Movement (PTM) started off as a movement, as a civil movement.
Of course.
Currently, I do see them transforming into a political entity by holding these elections, by
among themselves.
Yes.
Among themselves. Yeah.
What next? Is it going to be a political party? Will it contest elections? How do you see that?
Let me say that PTM was a spontaneous movement.
Mm-hmm.
And spontaneous movement can vanish, can organize, can take many shapes.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, what Lenin said was that spontaneous movements should be immediately organized. They should be, instead of asking for incentives, perks, and privileges or concessions, they must go for emancipation. The ideas, he said, at that time I couldn't understand. He says that the thought of organizing and going ahead for emancipation will come from without. I couldn't understand that, from without. How to come from without? Now it's up to PTM. For example, organization within PTM is very good, because when you don't know in which district who are our core members, who are our sympathizers, who is supposed to be the elder, who is supposed to be the most responsible person, you will not be able to organize anything. But meanwhile, it will depend on the operation of the state as well, and I'm sure it will continue. The operation of the state gives you further energy, further chances to spread further. Suppression should not make one suppressed, should not make us budge. We must go on, and hopefully the same will happen to PTM as well. And when I was saying that in political movement, when you see that nothing is changing, you have to go ahead. Imran also did this, though he's not ideological. When he knocked the generals, he achieved too many things. When Nawaz Sharif named them, he achieved too many things. With very defensive strategy, you cannot achieve. With offense, you can achieve many things.
But you have, of course, also mentioned one thing, which is that while, and it's a good thing that a movement is organizing it and everything, at the same time, you also mentioned that there are, if, you know, that there is a danger of certain people having more radical demands, getting more radicalized, the more the state will oppress.
Of course, it's natural. It's but natural.
And how should the PTM, because one of the one of the reasons of the success of the PTM is that it has kept itself non-violent. How should the PTM react to this to keep this non-violent?
Well, I will not advise PTM in public forum anyway. Mm-hmm. This is among ourselves. I'll discuss among ourselves, and we have been discussing and we'll be discussing.
But you agree that it should be non-violent?
Of course, it should be non-violent, but I don't accept non-violent as a philosophy. Mm-hmm. It's a good tactics.
Okay, I think you said a lot with that. I'll leave it at that. So as today the new general, just to because I'm coming to the end of this interview, but as to wrap up, as today the new Chief of Army Staff of Pakistan has been announced, you do not see anything changing with regard to the army's policies. Do you see any and that's my last question in terms of regional stability. You know, whenever these things happen, like a new army chief, there are of course a lot of voices, but there are also a lot of voices, as you know, that the most strenuous relationship in South Asia is that of India and Pakistan, and which has been quite, you know, in a deadlock for quite some years. I know that whenever a new army chief comes, there is a lot of debate also in India of seeing, well, maybe this is something we can talk to, maybe. Do you see some breakthrough in those relations between India and Pakistan?
I don't think so.
Why is that?
Well, India is in this region. India is the only institutionalized country. They are going as per their policy very properly. Pakistan is a very different country. The actual power corridor is GHQ, while the head of the state is the prime minister. So then within the army, their survival is basically on the garrison state. If there is a concept of the garrison state, army will be there, GHQ will be there. If there is peace, how can GHQ rule us? How can so the very existence of the army is on the plea that Pakistan is in danger, India is attacking us. We have so many enemies. They are snatching atomic power from us. Countries within the danger, Baloch and Pashtun and Kashmiri and Gilgiti are going to destroy this country. If we are not here, you will not be there. So this concept is not going to be vanished.
So so just to sum that up, is that apart from the institutional interest of the Pakistan army to have this animosity with India and keep it alive, it is also the incompatibility of both the countries that a breakthrough cannot be expected.
Yeah.
So what can be expected in if a breakthrough or some kind of peace talk or some kind of peace dialogue cannot be expected? What can we then expect? More terrorism? A war? What?
Well,
Another Mumbai, another Kashmir, or a Kargil. What can we then expect if peace?
They are not in that position as well. Mumbai, another Kashmir, another Kargil is also not possible for them. But this is also not possible that they will go for dialogue or for normalization of the issue or trade instead of bullets. They will never opt for them. One thing I simply want to add, whatever you said, that institutional is not institutional interest only, their personal interest as well. Okay. For example, there is a research article recently by Ahmed Noorani. $12.7 billion wealth of the family of Bajwa increased in 6 years, which comes out to be, I have calculated, 58 lakh rupees per day without any Saturday or Sunday break. So is it institutional interest? What about Kiani?
Yeah.
Let me disclose it through your program. Here in UK, I was shown under construction building in Birmingham, which is a residential and commercial complex. The person told me that there is a great talk about it, that this belongs to Bajwa. I asked him that there is a talk about his shifting over to Brussels. He said, no, this is gimmick. Actually, he's shifting here. So you can imagine anything from them if they can buy so many things abroad. If Papa John Pizza is safe, why not Big Bajwa? And what's their interest? It's not institutional interest. It's their class interest.
It's the personal interest as well.
This is classy. This is a new class. Class interests are there. Army or GHQ is just a name. It's a new ruling elite class. Of course, with the one which existed in British era, and then further were aided through Doltana documents, and then the doctrine, and now through Bajwa doctrine.
And that's why, for example, peace in South Asia, peace between India and Pakistan, you don't see happening very soon.
I don't see it.
Well, Dr. Mahsud, thank you very much. It was a very, very interesting interview from where we went to, your local issues in the Pashtun belt, your personal life, then to your your professional and political life, and then we ended up with the geopolitical situation in the region, especially on a day that the new Chief of Army Staff was announced for Pakistan, which unfortunately, and I take your experience and believe you, therefore, will not change a lot.
Unluckily not.
Thank you very much, and for taking out the time. And hopefully we will speak soon again.
Thank you very much for having me, and it's a great, proud privilege to be with you. We love to interact with you time and again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.